Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Uh, Welcome to Cyber JA, the place where we discuss all things cyber security and GRC. And I'm really happy that you have taken the time out from your very busy schedule to be with me in this training session. All right. So let me first do a little bit of housekeeping in that you are free to ask questions. However, you are able to ask the questions by typing in the chat provided, and I will definitely respond accordingly as I go through the presentation. However, we also have our Q&A session at the end to um, for me to answer all the relevant questions that you may have as we go through this presentation. So let me get into the meat of the matter for us to have a better understanding of what it is that we'll be looking at. And as you all know, we are living in a digital age, and cybercrime has been a major challenge for many individuals, not only organizations, but all of us. We are all connected to a global network. We all have cell phones, we all have computers, we all use various facilities around the world that are interconnected. And all of these uh, resources or digital services do come with their various challenges. And this has been happening from way back in time. Man has always been trying to find means to outsmart and to trick each other into giving up things, into getting valuables from each other. And this is pretty much what is still happening today in a more advanced way. So let us go into our presentation to see what we are up for in this training session. And the big question is, what if this were you? My bank account is empty. What impact would this have on you as an individual? And this is a very serious question that I'm asking. If you were to open your bank account or some important financial saving or investment, and you found yourself in this position, what impact would this have on you now? What impact would it have on you psychologically, financially? The impact that it would have on you and your family. And this is something that I want you to think about seriously. And probably persons could type in the chat the sort of impact that this would have on you now if you were to go into your bank account right now just to find out that all your life savings or investments were scammed or were hacked. What sort of impact this would have on you today? And you can type those in the chat so that I can see the necessary responses to this question. What sort of impact this would have on you today as an individual, or would this affect your life? Right? Just a question for you to think about. So what we're looking at, our presentation today is pretty much cyber scamming awareness training 101. And I don't know entirely the audience that I'm actually presenting to at the moment. And as a result, I'll be taking this pretty basic as it's in states 101, right? So the assumption is that you don't have any knowledge of what scamming is all about from a cyber perspective. And as a result, I am going to be taking this as basic as possible. And the aim is to create an awareness of all the various ways that persons can be scammed, and most importantly, how it is that you can now start to develop the ability to detect and to understand how to defend and to mitigate against these things from happening to you and to your family. So that is cyber scamming awareness training to create an awareness. Now, what are we going to learn in this presentation? First of all, we'll gain an understanding of what scamming is all about. Secondly, we're going to be looking at the types of scams. What are the motives behind scamming? Ways to protect against various scamming techniques. And very importantly, if time allows us, I'll be also going into demos where I will actually show you how these hackers or scammers actually carry out these techniques in order to get data from us to carry out their various fraudulent activities. All right, so we're looking at all of these things. What is scamming, the types of scams, what are the motives behind scamming, and ways to protect against various scamming techniques. And most importantly, in our next presentation, because this is only part one, right? This is part one of the fun stuff that we'll be looking at. So in our next presentation, for sure, we'll be going into more practical, advanced stuff that can definitely aid you in better identifying and preventing these scams from happening. Right. So in our future next presentation coming next week, I will look at the details of identifying these scams sent by SMS via fake websites. We look how to identify fictitious websites and text or WhatsApp messages. We're looking at how to check if your email address or addresses are being leaked or breached by hackers. We'll also be looking at how to make your web browser safer, how to make your smartphone safer. So these are the fun stuff that we're looking at in part two of this webinar series. Now, why am I doing this training? It's very important. Why am I doing this training? Right? I am doing this to raise an awareness of the extent of scams and the threat they pose to our finances and well-being. To help people, to help you, to help as many persons to recognize the telltale signs of a scam, to develop a critical thinking approach to making the right decisions, to raise an awareness of how to report scams and encourage persons or people to do this if they spot suspicious activity or have been the victim of a scam, and also to create a culture of security conscious individuals. So, what is a scam? Do you have an idea? Is this the first time have you ever heard this word? Think about it. What is a scam? What comes to mind? And you can add type your feedback in the chat for sure. All right, so once you think about scam, a scam is a scheme to con people out of their money. Simply put, simply a scheme to con people out of their money, mainly through social engineering. And other names for a scam include fraud, hoax, con, swindle, cheat. Right? So it's pretty much a way of um, gaining or taking valuable information from individuals or companies on a large scale. Right? So scamming is nothing new, although it is being done in various different ways in today's digital age. So that is pretty much what scamming is in the simplest way. Right? A scheme to con people out of money. Not only money, but any valuables that you may have that these individuals desire. What does the statistics have to say about scamming? What does the statistics have to say about scamming? So let's look at what is happening in the world today as it relates to scamming to recognize that it is definitely a challenge for many organizations and many individuals today. Right? Many families have been impacted, many lives have been affected significantly as a result of these scamming practices that are taking place. Now, did you know that every single year millions of people all over the world fall prey to scammers? And it's estimated that the total cost to consumers, for example, in the UK, is at 73 billion, with losses to mass marketed scams alone at 5 billion. Most victims don't report their scams, and surveys have found reporting levels as low as 5%. And the impacts are huge, right? That's one of the challenges of scamming. The impacts are very significant. In these cases, based on things that you have watched on the news that you have heard or read, many lives have been affected. People lose their entire life savings. They suffer emotional traumas. They become very depressed, right? Persons commit suicide, and the list goes on as a result of these things, fall into these scams, right? In the US, 1 in 10 adults will fall victim to a scam or fraud every year. It is said that 1.3 million children have their identities stolen every year. And in 2018, it said that internet enabled theft, fraud, and exploitation were responsible for a massive 2.7 billion in financial losses. In 2019, it's also said that phishing attempts grew by 65%. So, based on this, we recognize the impact of scamming is very significant, right? It's very significant. And simply because this is something that has become very financially lucrative for these individuals. This is no longer a matter of a one person sitting in a corner trying to outsmart persons. These are no organizations that are established to bring down very large organizations. And scamming is not something that only happens to large companies, but it can happen to anyone. Just about anyone can become a victim of a scamming attack at any point in time, right? And the list goes on. So there are many, many other facts that it relates to what is happening in this world in light of scamming. Now, what are the motives behind scams? Can you think of any? Why is it that these individuals take the time to trick people into gaining access to their valuables, gaining access to their data, gaining access to their identities? What are the motives behind scams? And I think you already know one of the largest motives as it relates to scamming. But nonetheless, let us see. Right? It says that the motive or the motivation of scammers are mostly universal financial in nature. That's one of the main reasons why we have scamming happening today. Financial motives. And these scammers exist too in many ways. For example, in one fashion or another, to pretty much remove or to separate their victims from whatever items of value that they have. That's the main motive behind scam, to gain something of value, mostly financial, right? That's the main motive behind scamming. Whether it is on a large scale or on a small scale, the aim is to get something of value that they can use to hold you ransom, that they can get you to pay over something in order to get what it is that they have removed from you. That's one of the main reasons behind scamming. We simply mean that you now have to start thinking smartly so that you can now be in a better position to ensure that you are able to safeguard yourself, to better understand the mindset of these individuals and how it is that they go about carrying out their various activities so that you can better protect yourself against these things from happening to you or your friends or family members. Now let us look at the types of scams. Right, so there are different types of scams. And the first one that we have is what is called an investment scam. Right, so that's an investment scam. And let us look quickly at what this is all about, investment scam. So when you talk about investment scams, and these scams are generally targeted at the 55 plus age group and are often sophisticated enough to lure purses in even experienced investors. So they are normally called what they call describe as the boiler room scams because they use high pressure sales to create a sense of urgency, and they may offer shares or a range of its investment opportunities, right? So that's one of the various types of scams that are used, for which many persons fall prey to. We have what is known as the courier scams, right? That's the courier scams. And in these courier scams, usually they start with an unsolicited telephone call or text advising that a bank fraud has been detected. And the scam is completed when the caller ends the victim's or attends the victim's home or uses an innocent courier to collect their bank card. All right. Then we have a computer software service scam, right? And in a computer software service scam, victims are cold called and told that there is a problem with their computer, and they are talked through the logon steps, so the fraudsters can now gain remote access to the computer, for which they charge fees and gain access to personal and financial information. Then we have what is known as advanced fee scams. And in the advanced fee scams, scammers get people to send money for a range of stuff, range of items, or non existent goods and services, or to collect lottery winnings, right? As many of us are familiar in terms of what's happening for scamming, right? So those are the various types of scam. Investment scams, we have the courier scams, we have the computer software service scam, and we have the advanced fee scams. Now, there are different techniques that are used in conducting scams. Now, looking at, right, so there are different techniques that are used in carrying out various types of scams. Now, looking at the screen on this picture, can you think of anything as it relates to scam or scamming taking place? I want you to think about it for a few seconds. What comes to mind when you look at this image in terms of scamming? Recognize that we have a computer, we have a cell phone, we see an email, right? So from looking on the screen, then recognize that scams can take place through your cell phones. They can take place through your computers, right? And this is now the more common methods through which scamming is actually taking place. Digital scams, right? The various techniques that are being used today are being done digitally through these mediums, right? Your cell phone or tablets, whatever is connected to the internet, then the various bad guys out there will try to find unique ways or creative ways to get us as end users to fall prey to the techniques that they use to get data from us that can be used in gaining access to the various valuables that we have, more so or various bank accounts that we have. All right. So let us look at the different techniques used in conducting scams. All right. So we have our email scams. Right. So our email scams, and it's referred to as our phishing. And I guess many persons are familiar with this word. But if you're not familiar with this term, don't be alarmed. All right. This is a learning session. It's just to create that awareness of what is happening. Right. So for persons who are constantly using their computers and even your smartphone, whatever devices, many persons today do access emails. Right. So this is one of the main channel through which scammers or the bad actors, as they would say, actually gain access to valuable resources that we have. Right. And I can remember many years ago, I can share my experience. I don't know, probably you have fallen into that same situation. When I received an email indicating that one of my friends was being held hostage in a particular country, and these persons got my access to my email. They knew of my employer at the particular point in time, and they were able to so design and set up this email in such a way that it played on my emotion, and I almost fall prey to that scam, right? And that is what they call social engineering techniques, in which these individuals now use psychological methods to get you as an individual to play upon your emotions, right? So they use the people around you, the things, persons that you're familiar with, in order to get you to act quickly. And the nature of the email was that in order for this person to be freed from the hostage situation, then I needed to send X amount of US dollars. Or they were trapped in a particular location and they needed my assistance urgently. And I almost fall prey until I was able to stop and to analyze, to assess the email, and then to do my necessary background checks to call around to find out if this person was actually in that situation. At that point in time, I recognized that this was not the case. So I recognized that my email account was hacked back then by scammers, the bad guys. And this is what phishing is all about, where they pretty much set that bait, waiting for you to fall victim, right? Email scams. And once you fall prey to these baits, then they gain access to your valuables that you have, right? So that's one method of our technique that is used to gain access to valuable resources that you have, that you need to be aware of, right? And this second technique, one of the most well-known techniques that these bad guys use to scam valuable information from us, is through the use of SMS or text messaging or even WhatsApp messaging, right? They call it smishing. So in one case you have phishing, no, they have smishing. And in smishing, they pretty much send text messages to your phone wanting you to take action. And all it requires is for you to click on a link. Once they click on a link, or you click on a link, then they can have access to all the information on your phone. They can know what text messages you sent, what valuable information you store on your phone, what notes, what pictures. Each time they can download software known as keyloggers that capture this keystrokes that you enter into various websites, financial websites, your credit card details. All of these things can be captured. So all they do is to send that fancy, convincing text message, an hyperlink in that message for you to, for example, you have one XYZ, you need to click on this link to go to our website in order to claim your prize. Many persons fall victim to this. That's all it takes, one click, and these persons can create devastation in your life. The next one is what we know as the ATM scams. Right? So these are well known, the ATM scams. Right? So those are the ATM scams. And in the ATM scams, so many things, the bad guys have used so many different ways to scam persons out of their finances. Right? They have tampered with these devices in so many ways. right? So we have our email scams, we have our SMS scams, we have our ATM scams, and there are many, many other different techniques that are used that I will not go into in this presentation. There are many other technical techniques that are used, but as I mentioned before, this is just to create that an awareness of these various techniques that scammers use to gain access to your valuable information, right? Now, let us look at general tips to avoid scams. So, general tips to avoid scams. And tip number one is if you have bought a ticket, you can't win it. Right? So if you haven't bought a ticket, you can't win it. And this is where many persons fall prey to. Someone calls you or they send you a message that you have won a prize, and many persons' life have been destroyed as a result of this. How can you win something if you have not purchased something? Right? You shouldn't have to pay anything to get a prize. Bear that in mind. Once you win something from any organization, you should not have to pay anything to get a prize. They are the one that is giving you this prize, right? They contacted you out of the blue, right? That's a case of suspicion. Don't be rushed. And this is how scammers operate. They create a sense of urgency, wanting you to do something now. Right? So resist pressure to make a decision right away. Very important. Another tip to avoid scams, and these are just general tips. Your bank will never phone you to ask for your PIN or your online banking password. Genuine computer firms do not make unsolicited phone calls to help to fix your computer. Right? So these are general tips as it relates to ways to avoid scams. Now we're going to be looking at the more specific ways that we can identify these scams and also to mitigate against these from happening. Right? Specific scam identification and mitigation. That is where we want to get to be able to identify when these things are happening and how we can actually prevent them from happening to us or from our friends or other individuals that we know within our family. All right, so let us look at the email scams or phishing. That's the email scams or phishing. And let me quickly share with you what this actually looks like. Okay, just hang on a second. Let me just bring this file whereby I can share this with you quickly. Where is that file? Just hang on a second. Let me just get to this file. Whoa. Just a second, guys. Pictures. Okay, just a second. Okay, guys. So there we have it. Hopefully, you're able to see it on my screen. Not certain. What? Uh, Pretty much, this is what email scams actually looks like, where persons will send these fictitious email to you, right? And you now have to be able to identify where these bad guys actually design these emails in such a way for you to fall victim of these scams, right? No, it's kind of a little bit challenging for you to see exactly all of the details here. However, what I will do for you is to all the presentation that I'm doing right now, I am going to be creating a link at the end of this presentation whereby you're able to access and to download all this material that you can actually look at in terms of seeing all the various details that are there, right? But pretty much in email scams, what these persons do is to create an email, and they design these emails in such a way that they look convincing. It can be, for example, an email implying that it is from your bank, your financial institution, your insurance company, right? And then the aim is for you to know, click on a link to go to our website, to go, for example, indicating that your account is locked out, things like those, for you to click on a link. And in next week's presentation, I'll be going into the practical aspect of this, whereby I will be showing you how it is that the bad guys will create these links to allow you to go to our website, and how they can actually gain access to all your credentials, to your bank, your financial information. And most importantly, I'll be also showing you practically how it is that you can now protect and prevent these things from happening to you. Right? Let us look at the phone call scam, right? And when we talk about our phone call scams, let me just find that information quickly. Let us go back to our just so quickly. Sorry. Right. So when we talk about our, and this is just quickly just pulling up information. Right. So when you talk about the warning signs behind scams, right, things that we need to be aware of as it relates to scams, guys. So we have to look on unsolicited calls from people claiming to work for government agencies, right? And they're saying here is that don't answer calls from unknown numbers. And this is also debatable because at times persons are genuinely calling us that are genuine. So this is also somewhat debatable. Don't return one ring calls, right? In many cases, there are persons who call, and these persons want us to call them back, right? And this is said that these may be scams to get you to call hotlines in, for example, in African and Caribbean countries that have US style 3-digit area codes, and you could incur hefty connection and per minute fees. And they also say that don't follow instructions on a pre-recorded message, for example, such as pressing 1 or pressing 2 for this option. Be aware of those cases that can happen. All right. And the list goes on from there as it relates to phone scams. Right. And they're saying what you need to do in cases like this is to pretty much hang your phone up on illegal or robocalls. Right. Do slow down and ask questions of, for example, telemarketers. Right. Do independent research in terms of travel deals or whatever it is that you're doing. The aim here, guys, is to stop and think before you do things. Do not jump into um, making decisions on the spot because these things seems or sound good. Then you become a victim of these situations, and that is how these guys operate. They come to you, they present, they call, and they make things look very nice, things look very attractive because they want you to fall victim to their schemes that they are trying to pull off on you. All right, so that is for our phone call scams and our email scams. Now look at the ATM scam. Right, and the ATM scam, we have heard many stories, many stories as it relates to the ATM scams. Now, very important is that when you go to these ATM machines, always be observant, guys. At times you have persons standing at ATM machines, just pretty much there, just loitering, waiting to see you, to look over your shoulders. At times these persons are even there willing to give assistance, especially with elderly persons, right? To gain access to their PIN numbers and to gain access to the cars themselves. So in devices, at times when you go, you have to observe the ATM machines, whether or not the parts are movable, right? They even have devices that they can place what they call pinhole cameras right at the ATM, the part that you insert that card or to receive your cash, where they can actually look at you entering your PIN numbers. They have devices that can actually record or extract data from your ATM cards, your bank cards. So you have to be very vigilant when you go to these ATM machines to ensure that if you need assistance where possible, if it is attached to a bank, then you go inside the bank to ask for assistance. Right? Always be observant when you go to ATM machines to protect your PIN numbers, to place your hand over your cards when you're punching in those numbers. Right? So you always have to look at these ATM machines. And at times, these are pretty obvious. For example, you might even see cases where the ATM machines have broken pieces. Then you avoid using these ATM machines. Right? So we have our email scams, we have our phone scams, we have our ATM scam. Now, what should you do if you suspect a scam? First thing, check with a trusted friend or relative or neighbor. Right? Very important, guys. Check. Do not fall prey to things that sound too good. Stop to check. Find out from somebody. Call a friend. Right? Get advice from an authoritative source. Right? Check with your financial institutions. Check with the security or the police department. Right? Check with your financial sources, financial organizations, wherever it is. Gain advice. Right? Report. So you check, then you get, then you report. So report scams and suspected scams, especially if debit cards, online banking, or checks are involved. Right? You want to contact the bank or credit card company. And then you tell, once you're aware of a scam or scamming activities, then you want to tell your friends, tell your family, tell neighbors, so they too can avoid these scams. And these are additional proactive steps that you can also take. And it says that you want to be suspicious of unsolicited emails asking you to click on links or open attachments, as it could be phishing. Right? You want to keep your information private. Use strong passwords. Only connect to known and trusted Wi-Fi networks. Right? Other advices. It says that update your devices. Keep your personal information in a safe place. Right? Never allow others to use your bank cards unless for sure these are trusted individuals. Right? Practice the sign out of websites and applications after each use. And as I had mentioned before, you might not be the most tech savvy individuals, right? And as a result of this, this is just to create an awareness. You are now in a better position where you can now ask somebody to show you how to carry out these various things as it relates to your cell phones, your computers, to make things more safe for you, right? All right. So this is now the good part, or one of the fun parts, right? I'll be demonstrating to you in this session how it is that the bad guys can actually steal data from your phone, right? And pretty much what is being done, or what the scammers do, is to use what is known as social engineering techniques, right? What is done is that they try to play on your emotion psychologically, right? These persons pretty much want to get you as an individual and even organizations to just fall prey. All it takes is one click of a button for them to gain access to all valuable resources that you have, right? So what I'll be demonstrating to you is an instance where an attacker, a scammer, send you a message to your phone saying, hey, you have won something. Please click on this link so that you can claim your prize. A simple text message to your device. And I'm going to show you all the things that they can have access to as a result of doing this. All right. So let us quickly go into that demonstration session. As I said before, guys, there are lots of technical aspects as it relates to scamming, for which I'm not able to go into all those technical details. But the aim is for you to know, develop a better awareness of all the things that can happen, or the things that will happen. It's a matter of being alert. Always stop to think before you act. That's what it boils down to. Stop to think before you act. Ask questions. If it is too good to be true, stop to think. All right, let us get into that demonstration. Let me just get my devices up and ready. All right, so in this session, what I am doing at the moment is acting as a bad guy. So I am now the scammer, and I am now setting up my device so that I can scam you of valuables that you have on your phone, right? Valuables that you have on your phone. All right, so I am the scammer. This is my machine. All right, and guys, don't be perturbed by all what you're seeing on the screen right now. The aim here is for you just to see what can happen when a scammer sends you a link to your cell phone and you click on that link. All that can happen to that phone, right? So in cases whereby you have process sending around messages, chain of messages in WhatsApp, text messages, stop. Be careful not to fall prey for all of these things. All it takes is just one click on these, right? So if you get all these messages and things that you are not aware of coming from sources that are unknown, simply delete these things, right? Let me go to this. Okay, there we have it. So this is your phone, all right? So this is just an emulator, just showing what your phone actually looks like, right, on screen, all right? So what I have done is I am the bad guy. And what I have done is pretty much send information to your phone, asking you to download a file. You click on that link, and let me show you what exactly will start happening. Okay. Okay, let me just get everything configured properly. Let me just look at what's happening here. Okay, 67, that's 3. Okay, so what I'm pretty much doing right now, guys, is doing the necessary configurations that are required to carry out this attack on your cell phone. So I am pretty much acting as a bad guy, the scammer, and I want to gain access to all that you type on your phone, all the credit card details, bank information that you store on your phone. I am pretty much just acting as a bad guy to create um, the that file, right, or what they describe as a payload that can be sent to your phone, right? And this, what they do is pretty much design this. So in the back end, this is all the things that they do. And what they would do is pretty much design a nice fancy email or a text message or a picture that you are not aware of as to what is happening in the back end. And they present this to you in a nice message. Click on this, go to this. Your bank is wants you to reset your password, things like that. And then you fall victim, right? So let me just continue. Okay, so there we have the bad guy sending his attack to your cell phone. So let me just bring up the cell phone, and the file is now on the cell phone, and then you decide to run that file once you get it, right? Uh, right. So on your cell phone now, what will happen on your cell phone? You will now ask, for example, you click on that link to download the file, and the file now is going to ask you to install. Guys, no email will be sent to you or to your phone or text message should be asking you to install a file, right? So immediately here it is saying, right, you be naive, you go right ahead, just clicking next, 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 right? So immediately that virus or that malware begins to install on your phone itself. All right. The aim here is once you're not sure of something, do not click, do not install, ask questions, stop to think. All right. So the victim, the scammer, has sent this wonderful file to you. You click on that file. Now the file is now installing a malicious or software on your phone. All right, so it is being installed, and in the back end, immediately the scammer begins to look at his or her computer. Right, so the file is still installing. Okay, just waiting for the file to complete the installation. And in these modern phones, I mean, that installation would have been completed a long time ago. It would happen so fast you don't even recognize it. All right, let me see what's happening here. Okay. Okay. So let me try to attempt to now connect to this cell phone. Oh, to see what's happening. All right, guys. This installation is taking a little bit longer than usual. However, I will not be waiting on that in the interest of time. But pretty much once that is completed in the back end, as an attacker, as a scammer, I would be able to pull all information from the phone. I am talking about your pictures. I'm talking about your SMS, your text messages, your phone call log. I'm able to send a text message from your number. I'm able to see all your text messages. I'm able to see all websites that you visited, your financial information that you type into all of those things, right? So the aim here is that you are very careful of your actions when it comes on to um, carrying out activities using cell phones, your internet, your ATM machines, right? Stop to think, guys, carefully before you act, right? That's the aim behind all of this, right? For you to stop to think, call, ask questions. Right? So to sum all of what has been said so far, and very importantly, guys, that in our next session, this session is pretty much just to create that an awareness, right? This is just an awareness to stimulate your interest. In our next presentation, I'll be going into all the practical details. I'll be going into the practical aspect of your emails. I'll be going into the practical aspect of the cell phones, from a more technical perspective, how it is that you can actually go through your email thoroughly, your text messages thoroughly, to see whether or not these are actually um, legitimate emails or resources that are being sent to you before you actually fall prey to any form of social engineering attacks that can take place um, to gain access to any valuable resources that you may have, right? Any form of social engineering. So this is pretty much to summarize all that has been said so far. So this is pretty much to summarize all that has been said so far. Right? So as I was saying before, guys, please type your questions in the chat. Whatever questions you have at this point in time. This is part one of the series, right, of cyber scamming awareness training. And this first part, as I said before, is pretty much non-technical to create that awareness. In our second training, we're looking at the more technical aspect of all that you can look out for, things that you can actually do practically to make um, your cell phones, your computers more safer as it relates to preventing scammers from actually taking advantage of your devices. So you may go ahead to and have those questions in the chat so that I can respond to them accordingly if you have questions. All right, guys, if there are no questions, then I'll see you next week, same time, same place. All right, guys, if there are no questions, then I'll see you next week, same time, same place.